Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. This is Tim Ash, the CEO of Site Tuners, and your host for our ongoing series of free webinars. Today's topic is 5 Essentials to Epic Content Marketing for Business. And I'm very pleased to have my buddy Joe Pulizzi presenting. Joe's an amazing guy. I'll introduce him in a minute, but let me get rolling and tell you a little bit more about Site Tuners before we jump into our fantastic content today. We are a conversion rate optimization agency and work with companies all over the world. We have only one mission, and that is to get people to act once they get to your website or your landing page. Seems pretty simple, but there's a lot that goes into that. We work, as I mentioned, with companies of all sizes all over the world. You may recognize some of our clients. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I just want to tell you very quickly about our perspective. We have 3 main service offerings for our clients. One is conversion-centered redesigns of websites. We can diagnose problems with your website or your landing pages, redesign them from the visitor's perspective for higher conversion. We can, of course, also do A/B and multivariate test plans. And finally, one of the things that we do on an ongoing basis is what we call conversion mentoring or knowledge transfer to train people in your own organization to do better at conversion. You don't have to come to us, the high priests of conversion, to do everything. We want you to be able to do it in-house. All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about Joe. I mean, there's quite a bit here. He's obviously a multiple book author. He's the founder of the Content Marketing Institute and the fantastic Content Marketing World Conference Series. The U.S. show is in the fall in Cleveland. If you haven't been and you want to join, I think last year it was over 3,000 of your fellow peers in content marketing. I strongly recommend it. Some of the top people in the industry are going to be there. If you ever meet Joe in person, you'll also know he kind of likes the color orange, which I think is a reaction to his upbringing. I mean, growing up in a family of funeral home directors, of course you wear loud orange suits and run a conference series. So with that introduction, Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Hey, it's always a pleasure to work with you and your team. I mean, I love the ideology behind what you do, that you're trying to teach your customers and have them do it for themselves, and that's what we really preach and teach at Content Marketing Institute. We're dedicated to advancing the practice of content marketing. We do it through events, magazine, advisory, all that good stuff, and I'll have a little coupon code at the end if you want to come to our big show, Content Marketing World. All right. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with talking about an 8-minute period here about the evolution of content marketing. For those of you that are familiar with the industry of content marketing, it's been around for hundreds of years. We've got case studies going back to the 1700s. But just recently, in the past few years, has content marketing taken off into one of the fastest growing areas of marketing. And I just kind of want to, let's go back. Let's go back into the days when the website, Al Gore created the internet. Here we had the website. And that gave us, marketers were thrilled because we had the opportunity to put all of our features and benefits and sales information and throw it up on the website. And the thought was, it's great. Now our customers, our prospects could get access to what we thought was this wonderful, wonderful information. And then that was going to be the savior for all of us in sales and marketing. And then the next greatest invention for marketers and salespeople ever was created, social media. And now we could take all of our product and sales information and we could tweet it out and we could put it on Facebook and create blogs and videos and images, and now we're meerkatting and periscoping and God knows what else we're doing. And the thought was, hey, this is really going to be amazing because now we can communicate with our customers directly, and this is the idea. So this is not content marketing 1.0. This is just corporate content 1.0. We have stuff that we want to sell. We package it into different types of messaging, and we're going to throw it out there with the idea that we are going to attract and retain customers. The problem is, what we found out is that our customers really don't care about anything we have to say. And now that they have their own choices about what they can engage in, because they have an informational device with them 24/7, they can choose to ignore us. So the idea was, look back before 1990. We had 8 channels, which meant that brands with big budgets and media companies that controlled the pipelines and the printing presses and whatnot, they controlled the messaging. Well, now consumers have a choice of engaging in whatever they want, whenever they want, And we look at the buying process. If you look at any result or research from Gartner or from Forrester or Altimeter, they all say the same thing, is that the majority of the buying process, 60% or more of the buying process, is complete before they ever contact our company, ever contact the salesperson. So then we've turned to this thing called content marketing. And the idea was, hey, if we create valuable, relevant, compelling content on a consistent basis to a targeted audience, we can attract and retain customers that way. And I've got a couple slides on this just because I don't know where you're at in your stage of content marketing. So I just want to level set and give you a couple definitions of how we view content marketing at CMI. So basically, this is the owned media bucket. So instead of communicating through somebody else's channel like we've historically done for the past 40 or 50 years through advertising or renting somebody else's channel, we're going to create our own amazing information and build audiences. You're going to hear me talk today about building audiences throughout and how critical that is. This is not about what we sell. So when we work with mostly multi-billion-dollar organizations, and when we go in to these organizations, most of the content is about themselves. It's feature, benefit stuff. It's about their products and services. It's not focused on the audience. Content marketing is content that is maybe closely related to what you sell, but you're really educating people so that they know, like, and trust you enough to buy from you. And just because there's a lot of definitions flowing out around there, you might see the term branded content. When I look at the term branded content is content created on behalf of the brand. That's when you see companies like Coca-Cola talk about the history of the shape of their bottle and things like that. It's interesting, but that's really branded content. It's more self-serving content. Content marketing is totally focused on the needs of the audience. And I put these slides in because I think it's so important, just so what you see is going to happen over the next couple of years is because there's really only one difference when we look at marketers. So let's say if you're on this call, this webinar, and you're not with a media company, you're on the marketer side. So you have a brand and you're trying to sell products and services, and you're creating content in order to do that. Publishers are creating the same kind of content with the same kind of processes. They might disagree, by the way, but the processes are pretty much the same as we go. But there's only one difference in the business model behind this, and that's how the money comes in. So publishers, when they create content, and I've been a publisher for well over 15 years now. When you create content as a publisher, 99% of the revenue that comes in, you're trying to sell subscriptions to that content, you're selling the content directly in some way, or you're getting sponsorship of that content. In many cases, that looks like advertising. Marketers, you're doing the same thing, but instead of monetizing it through directly from the content, you're doing it by selling more products and more services, creating more customers from that for what you actually sell. But in all other cases, there's really no difference, and you'll see this throughout the presentation. I'll talk a little bit more about this. So I'm going to share with you some of the research findings. We've been working with Content Marketing Institute, been working with marketing profs for the past 6 years on our benchmarking study. We're just about ready to really start on and field the 2016 research, so I'm excited about that. What we know is going on right now, and there's the short link so you can get at the research. 9 out of 10 companies say they use some form of content marketing. Whether or not that's true or not, that's what they believe with the definition that we give them that I just shared with you, that they use content marketing. So that makes me happy. I'm the content marketing evangelist. I'm out there wearing orange, as Tim said, in my orange suit, doing my thing, trying to spur up excitement about there's a different way to communicate with our customers. But as you see this on your page, this 35%, this is what makes me sad. And this is why I'm out here evangelizing this and educating this, because this is the global effectiveness rate for content marketing. So if you're, David Ortiz and you're batting for the Boston Red Sox, you're batting 350. That's fantastic. You're going to the All-Star game. If you're batting 350 as a chief marketing officer in regards to content marketing, you're probably getting fired. This is not good enough. And even worse, when we look at the companies that say that they're really doing well at content marketing, it's less than 10%. This is a problem. This is a real issue. And what I wanted to do as we got the latest research, and the first thing I do is I get the research and I look at it and I say, well, what's the difference between those that say that they're really effective at content marketing and everyone else? What is that difference? And there's two things, actually, and I'm going to talk about those in a second. But before I do that, I want to ask you this question. I know you can't respond to me, but I want you to think about this question about whether that you know of in your organization and agencies. Answer for yourself. How many of you have some kind of a documented content marketing strategy written down? And I don't care if it's on a cocktail napkin, but it is a documented strategy and you understand your core audience, your content niche, and how you're going to execute that. Most of the organizations we work with don't have one. Now, why is this important? Because when I look at what separates the great content marketers from everyone else, it's two things. The first thing is effective content marketers actually document their content marketing strategy. They have it in a PowerPoint presentation, in a Word document, in a PDF, Post-it notes all over the wall, whatever the case is, it is documented. Very important. You can see that that's a huge difference from effective content marketers, 5 times difference when you look at documented versus not a non-documented strategy. So that's the one thing. And the second thing is, it's not rocket science, but it's just things that we need to do because publishing has become so easy. It's so incredibly easy for us to publish now. We're like, oh, we want to do a blog. Let's create some videos. We sort of do it in a vacuum, and we do it in the silos that we're in the organization, and we're not thinking holistically as content as an asset. The second thing is we actually have to follow the strategy. Believe it or not, those that are not effective with content marketing don't follow the strategy. It's so funny when you look at like creating buyer personas. See this all the time. Big companies will go create buyer personas. They'll put all this work in there. Hey, there's Tim, there's Sharon. That's what they look like. It's fantastic. And then they put it in a drawer and they never look at it again. You cannot do this. The two critical differentiators are, one, I need to create some kind of a documented content marketing strategy, and I will talk about how to get started with that today. And the second thing is you actually have to follow it consistently. What's the difference? Well, we know that those that say that that they actually have a documented content marketing strategy are 8 times more successful at measuring. They look at more metrics, 6 versus 4, and this is the bottom one I love. They put less emphasis on web traffic. Web traffic is always the number one, and has been for the last 6 years, the number one way that marketers measure their effectiveness when it comes to content marketing. But as we know, web traffic in and of itself is meaningless. That's a lower level metric that we've got to make sure we hook that on to other objectives and other metrics so that we can show, are we generating sales? Are we saving costs? Are we creating happier customers? Whatever the case might be. And this is the last part of the research I want to talk about is budget. So effective content marketers say that they're spending 37% of their total marketing budget, not including staff, on content creation and distribution. Lesser effective, 16%. So you say the difference. They're investing more. They believe in it. Totally get that. Here's what keeps me up at night. Doesn't matter whether they are effective at content marketing or not effective or struggling or don't have a strategy or do have a strategy. Regardless of that, both groups are spending significantly more on content marketing, content creation, and distribution over the next 12 months. So what should that mean for you? That means you need to prepare for a whole lot of really bad content. Get ready for more cats and more babies, and that's what we're going to see because they don't have a strategy. Of course, they don't have a strategy, so they're not following anything. They're not meeting with their teams on a regular basis, and they're hurting you that actually have a strategy. So my goal here is that you come out of this webinar and you really do put some time into creating a documented content marketing strategy. So yes, you have stuff you need to sell. Totally get that. You have products and services. You have revenue items that you have to hit. I get it. We're going to connect that by creating valuable, compelling, and relevant content to a targeted audience on a consistent basis. And if we do that, and we do it really well, over a good period of time consistently, we will attract and retain customers and accomplish our goals. And that leads us right into the first element. So I told you I was going to give you 5 elements. I'm going to give you 5 and then 10 takeaways on top of that. And the first element is this: sales savings or sunshine. Sales savings or sunshine. What are we doing? Why are we doing this in the first place? And there's only 3 reasons to do content marketing when it comes to communicating with our external audience. Is it driving sales? Is it saving costs? Or sunshine? Is it creating happier, more loyal customers? So one of the 3 S's. I'm going to give you a case study for each of these, and then we're going to go on through a little exercise that I think is critical for all of you to do here in the very near future.
So our good friends at Copy Blogger Media, of course, Tim's familiar with Brian Clark at Copy Blogger. I like this example because the folks at Copy Blogger basically blog every day for 19 months without monetizing the platform. What did they do? They created email subscribers from their daily content that looks like this. I mean, they're focused on online copywriting solutions, SEO solutions, that type of content. And they're trying to educate their audience and give them learnings ongoing and position themselves as a leading expert in this area, which they've done. Well, they've amassed well over 200,000 subscribers, email subscribers specifically, and 99% of Copy Blogger's revenue. Copy Blogger is one of the fastest software as a service companies out there right now. They're not a media company. They actually sell software. What they found is that 99% of the revenue that they get coming into the business first comes from subscribers. So think about that. They're not going and they're converting and getting the lead in and getting them to close right away. They are getting their information, getting them to opt in to a regular offer, a really valuable offer. They're nurturing that over many months and oftentimes 6 months plus, and then they're converting them into a customer. So this is a great example of sales. Cost savings. One of my favorite examples of the cost savings goal is Jyske Bank. Jyske Bank is one of the largest banks in Denmark. Basically, Jyske Bank, they were tired of spending millions of dollars on sponsorship, and they were actually spending a lot of money sponsoring football matches, as we would call in the States, would be soccer. And the marketers got together, chief marketers, they said, is there a better way that we can spend this money? And they said, well, why don't we go out and build our own audience so we don't have to sponsor these types of events? And they went out and said, we are going to create JyskeBank.tv. By the way, this picture that you're seeing, that is the bank. That's inside the bank itself. They have a tagline that says, we are the only media company with its own bank, which I think is just fantastic, by the way. So they launched this. They created amazing online video content every day. They hired professional broadcasters, journalists to get this thing done. They amassed a significant audience. And then what happened is that years later, that same football event that used to get millions of dollars from them to sponsor, they now asked Jyske Bank to come in as a media sponsor and say, hey, would you cover our event? We'll let you have all this stuff for free, but we would like you to cover the event. So instead of having to spend that money, they're getting all the same benefits and more from being a media partner because they built an audience that organization, that sports organization wanted to reach. How valuable is that? I just love that case study. And then, as I was talking about before, content marketing is very old. It's hundreds and hundreds of years old, and one of the original examples of this is the Furrow magazine from John Deere. Basically, the Furrow was created in 1895 from agricultural manufacturer John Deere because they wanted their customers to be more successful at being farmers, more successful small businesses. So they created this print publication, which turned into a print and digital publication. And if you said, Joe, what is the largest media company in the farming and agricultural industry? I would tell you that it is not a media company. I would tell you that it is John Deere. 1.5 million circulation subscribers in 40 countries and 14 different languages. And this goes out to make sure they keep John Deere customers for life and keep helping them be more successful as customers and specifically as John Deere customers. So I love this example of sunshine and a customer loyalty initiative. So the first thing you have to think of with your sales, savings, or sunshine is the why. So here's a little exercise for you that of course, don't do it now, but at a later point, I want you to do this. And we've done this with a number of large businesses, and no one has ever completed it and had the data information to complete it. And I want you to do this because you can really start to focus on what you should be doing and what you should not be doing when it comes to content marketing. So first of all, I want you to list on the left-hand side of your page, actually use a piece of paper if you can. It will get out of the digital for a little bit. And I want you to list all the ways you create content and how you distribute it. So you could say, I do ebooks, I do white papers, I do email newsletters, I tweet, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Slideshare, whatever. I want you to list those down the left-hand side of the page. And at the top of the page, I want you to put why ? And I want you to list the business reason, sales, savings, or sunshine behind each one of those initiatives and the metrics that you're using to measure that. And I haven't found one company that's ever been able to figure this out. In a lot of cases, if you're in a big company, you might not even know what the business reason is behind you doing the blog, or you're working on this portion of the website, or what's the reason why we're doing the e-newsletter. A lot of cases we get because we've always done it. And I'll tell you what, in this era of we've got to create the best possible content to cut through the clutter, we can't afford to just spread it all over the place and not know why we're doing it and invest in the right areas. So please do this exercise at some point. I guarantee you'll get a lot of value out of it. And if you can, do it with your team, and you'll really learn something about what's going on in your business. Element number 2, maybe my favorite thing right now to talk about with content marketing, is creating a content marketing mission statement. I'm going to tell you why this is so important to your business. So first, think about this. Let's go back to that, as I talked about, that media versus marketer mentality. Now, as I said, I've been in media for a long time, been in the publishing business. I've been on about 35 different launches of programs. So that would be, I've done magazine programs, e-newsletter programs, blog programs, and we've done on behalf of clients and for ourselves. Every time we start with an editorial mission. We create an editorial mission statement that guides the entire process, that becomes the core to everything we do, that every time we create content, we put it through the lens of our editorial mission statement. All media companies do, all great media companies do this. It's standard. But we all think, and we all are to some extent, we're publishers now. We're trying to think and act like publishers, but almost no brands that I go into have a editorial mission, or what we would call a content marketing mission statement. And I don't understand this. So what makes media companies amazing and great is something that we don't even do on the brand side. So I want you to do this. I'm going to give you a couple examples, and then we're going to break it down so that you can do this for yourself. So the first one is, really quickly, this is Homemade Simple. Homemade Simple was developed by Procter & Gamble in 2003. It's a long time. You'll see this. It takes patience and consistency to do this right and to become the leading informational expert in your area. So you can see they create organizational tips for the home, recipes, whatnot. They have a content marketing mission statement that I simplified to this: enabling women to have more quality time with their families. So what won't you see? If you use this, you won't see any 6-hour recipes here, which, of course, because it doesn't go to the goal. With the outcome of the audience is to have more quality time with their families. So you've got to focus on what that outcome is. It helps the entire editorial calendar process as you go through it. So let's look at a small B2B manufacturing company, Indium Corporation. They started a blog back in 2005 around industrial soldering equipment. That's what Indium sells. So for all of you that say that you don't have sexy content to talk about, this is the least sexy content you're ever going to see, and they've been able to really, really work this for the organization. Started in 2005, 18 months later, 600% increase in qualified leads online. It's completely changed the face of the entire organization. Rick Short runs that program. He can't rave enough about what they've been able to do with their blogging program. They now have 21 engineers that blog consistently on the Indium blog. And for those of you that ever work with engineers, that's a tough feat to get engineers to tell quality stories. Here's their mission statement: helping engineers answer the most challenging industrial soldering questions. Let's break this down. They're not talking to CFOs. They're not talking to plant managers. They're talking specifically to engineers. Our goal is to answer all the most challenging industrial soldering questions they would have. We're not talking about ball bearings. We're not talking about siding. We're very focused. And by them doing this over the past decade, they've become the leader in that kind of information. They are the media company for industrial soldering questions. So they've been focusing on it for that long. And everything you go, you type in anything in the search, that's what comes up. And that's what people are subscribing to. So let's go through so I want you to do this. So let's look at a traditional media example on how they do it, and we're going to break it down. So Inc. magazine, one of my favorite magazines, targeted to entrepreneurs and business owners. You go to their About Us page, and you will find their editorial mission. Welcome to Inc., a place where entrepreneurs and business owners can find useful information, insights, resources, and inspiration for running and growing their businesses. There are 3 parts to this. 1, who's your core target? In Inc.'s case, they're saying entrepreneurs and business owners. We never want to go outside of one audience, but they believe that these 2 audiences are so tied at the hip that they have the same informational pain points, I would agree with that. What are going to be delivered? The key word here is useful. Everything they send is useful. It is not a bait and switch. It's not sales related. They are selling. They are basically educating you with every piece of information they have. 3, the most important one, is outcome. What is the outcome for the audience? This is not you selling more Swiffer pads or selling more of your products and services. This is specifically about what you want the audience to get out of your content. In Inc.'s case, inspiration for running and growing their businesses. So their goal with every piece of content is one of 2 things. 1, to help make me more profitable as a business, or 2, help me generate revenue. And every piece of content that they have tries to do that, and they do it very well. So how do you bake this in? And my nice little tip that you can execute immediately into your program is, if you have an editorial calendar, so just think about the editorial calendar and do a spreadsheet. Here's your topic on the left, and here's who's going to write it. Here's the approval process, and the dates, and the keywords. Add outcome to the top of that and figure out what do you want the audience to get out of that specific piece of content, and that has to tie back to your mission statement. Are you trying to help them get a better job, live a better life? What are you trying to do? So that's what we want to have, and that would really help you. So as you create your mission statement, again, back to your team, what's your defined audience? What are you going to deliver? And what is that specific outcome? And by the way, if you are targeting more than one audience, I will put money on the fact that you probably will fail if you're trying to target more than one audience. There's too much competition out there to do that. You have to focus each mission statement that you have on one particular audience. And think of, by the way, think of something like the Huffington Post, right? Huffington Post started as a political blog back in the day. Now they have 150 plus different destinations, all targeting different kinds of audiences, all with a different mission statement. We have to think that way for the different audiences that we're trying to target. How do you think of areas that maybe you can differentiate at that people haven't been covering? So let's look at this. And one of my favorite tools of all time is Google Trends. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You want to track keyword phrases over time and usage. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why, Tim, but I talked about knitting here. So I typed in knitting into Google Trends, and you can see that knitting gets more popular at the December, January timeframe of each year. I'm assuming because you got holiday gifts that are going on, and people are getting cold, especially where I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio, in the winter time. So go ahead and type your phrase in, and then scroll down to the bottom, and I want you to go to the right side under related searches, and I want you to hit the rising tab. This is where we can find some breakout terms that people are typing for that maybe there's not a informational expert on that specific niche, because you have to find the content niche to that audience that you can actually be the leading expert in the world. I totally believe that. And if that is not your goal, then you probably are creating content that's just like everyone else, called commodity content, and you're never going to break out and create a loyal audience around it. So here, hey, the knitting loom is breaking out. Who knew? It's coming back again. knitting for beginners, double knitting, knitting cast on, just to give you some ideas, because there's so many knitting blogs out there. Why would anybody go from their current knitting blog to my knitting blog? It's got to have something different. So you have to figure out what we call a content tilt. You have to figure out what that tilt is before you do anything else. All right. Element 3. And I'm very passionate about this. This is a short one, but I just kind of want to give you some examples of, you do not want to build your content shipped on rented waters, your house on rented land. You hear a lot of things out there. I don't care how you say it, but I want you to focus on what you can actually control and look at a different metric besides maybe what you're looking at on social media. So let's just, I'm not picking on Starbucks. This could be any big company, any small company, but let's go to Starbucks' Facebook page. They've got almost 40 million people liking their page. They've spent millions of dollars on people creating an audience on Facebook. Well, as we know, Facebook continually changes their algorithm. And if you're Starbucks and you put an organic update, a new post onto your page as Starbucks, less than 1% of the people that like you are going to actually see that. And that's Facebook's prerogative to do that. So they did the bait and switch. That's fine. They need to be profitable. I don't have a problem with Facebook on this. I have a problem with companies like Starbucks doing this, because you are building your audience on something you cannot control. The same thing, look at Google+. I don't know how many of you use Google+. I know, Tim, you're big in photography, so there's some great photography chats and areas and groups on Google+. But Google+ has had two major restructurings in the last year. Google doesn't even know what Google+ is going to be. So Starbucks has 3 million followers on Google+ that they may or may not have access to tomorrow. Twitter, LinkedIn, you have access to them today. You might not tomorrow. I'm not saying don't use social. Absolutely we want to use social. But I don't want you to give total control over somebody else's platform and build your asset on something you cannot control. So I really, this is today. It may change, but it's worked for a long, long time. And if we focus on building opt-in subscribers and focus that as our key metric, that is the difference. That is the area we have the most control over anything else, because at least we can communicate directly if we get their opt-in permission. So go back to Copyblogger, right? Why have they built a $10 million plus business in a fairly short period of time? Because they got over 200,000 subscribers. By the way, and Copyblogger just shut down their Facebook page because they wanted to focus that attention and that investment in other ways, which is their prerogative to do, but you can see the power of email and subscribers that's so critical. Here's a corporate example from TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade published Think Money for a long, long time. Think Money goes to very active traders trading stocks and derivatives 50, 100, 150 times a day plus. So this magazine is going to that group of people. And for years, it was tough to keep this magazine going because they only had really solid qualitative feedback to say it was a great publication. It was well read. Most of the people read the publication. They love it. But it took them 2 years. I'll talk about patience a lot here. It took them 2 years to find out that, let's see, what's the number? Oh, the people that subscribe to this magazine trade 5 times more than those that don't. Think about that. 5 times more than those that don't. Now, this is a publication that'll never get killed. This is the executives are holding it up and they're walking around the office saying this is the best thing ever because it's seeing positive behavior change. That's what the power of subscribers can do. So you're saying, Joe, well, how do I show return on investment? A lot of different ways to do it depending on what your goals are, but this is the key way. It's my favorite way. Look at your subscribers and find out what the difference is between those that subscribe to your content and those that don't. Take your subscription list, and this is why it takes a while to get the data. Sometimes it takes over a year to get the data, and then you line it up. Do your subscribers buy more? Do they close faster? Do they stay longer? What do they do different? And that's really the advantage that we have, and that's why you're building an asset over time, but as I said, sometimes it takes a while to get there. And just a little side note on this, I'm not going to talk long about it. Tim knows I got a new book coming out in September called Content Inc. It's focused on small businesses. It's sort of a passion project for me. And we interviewed all sorts of people from all over the globe that have built multi-million-dollar platforms. In each and every case, they first built an audience. First build the audience and then they monetize it. First build an audience with amazing content. Get that audience loyal to you so that they love you. That if their content went away, you would miss it. Think about that question for yourself. If your content was disappeared off the face of the earth, would anybody care if it was gone? And that you have to say yes, and then they monetize it. The average between starting a content program to monetization was about 15 to 17 months. It takes time to build a loyal audience now, but it's an amazing asset. So if you're like, Joe, I've only got 3 months, 6 months, go buy pay-per-click. Go buy advertising. It's going to take time for this. You can see some short indicators where you get more leads, get more conversions, but long term to make it work, you've got to have over a year timetable. Got 2 more that I'm going to quickly go through, and then we're going to get to some Q&A with Tim here. Element 4. So you might be saying, okay, great, Joe. I know why I'm doing it. Sales, savings, sunshine. I'll build the editorial, content marketing mission statement. That's great. We go through, I'm going to build it on opt-in subscribers, but you might not have an audience right now. Now, this is my favorite way to use social media and build an audience is by leveraging influencers like Tim out there to get them to help them ultimately help you. And to put it in a not so nice way, you're trying to steal their audience. You're doing it in a nice way, but you're basically trying to of their audience. So all you conversion experts on the call will appreciate some of this stuff at the end. You're much smarter than I am with this, but this is the process that we used at Content Marketing Institute when we first got started. We didn't have many subscribers. We had almost no budget. We're like, how do we build an audience when we don't have any funds to go out and get an audience? We have to do it organically. So the first thing we did was we put together an influencer list. What's an influencer list? It's where my customers are hanging out on the web when they're not on my site. And put that list together. You can use, maybe that's a good usage for clout. Littlebird.com is a fantastic tool to use for this, to find those influencers. First list them. We started with 42. You can start with 5 to 10. They could be bloggers, media sites, associations, could be competitors, so you want to get into that. And then you want to build that list. Great. That's step one. Then we're going to do a social media sharing process that I learned from Andrew Davis, author of Brandscaping, called Social Media 411. And I'm going to use Twitter as this example. I know most of you are on Twitter. It's a great usage of Twitter to do this. So let's say 411, for every 6 tweets. For every 6 tweets that you send out, let's start with the right. One can be a sales tweet. It could be you got customer service program of the year, you won some awards, you created some new widget that's fantastic, like a press release would be. You're going to tweet that out. Look, nobody's going to retweet it. Nobody really cares, but you'll get product marketing off your back. Great. Get that tweet off to the side. The one in the middle, that's your content marketing. That's your fantastic blog, amazing podcast, white paper, ebook, digital magazine, whatever the case is. The 4 on the left, 67% of the time you are sharing OPC, other people's content, and we're sharing that out religiously. And we want to do this with a core group of those influencers over at least a month period of time. And you've got to get on their radar, because what I see most companies doing is they share content from other people, but they don't do it consistently. I want you to pick 5 to 10 of these influencers, and I want every other day I want you to share a piece of their content that's relevant to that content marketing mission statement we talked about. Share, 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 like we have the example here. We're tagging those people. Fantastic. That's how you build a relationship with them, which is a good start. And then what do we do with it? Then we bake the influencer content into our big pieces of content, what we call brick content or pillar content. So we created something called the Content Marketing Playbook, had 42 case studies in it. 26 of those were case studies from those influencers. So like the Jay Bear was on, which I didn't know at the time. You know, we put him on page 9. Here's a great case study courtesy of Jay, linked back to Jay. I've been sharing Jay's stuff for a while, so Jay started to know who I was. And when I let Jay know that he was in this ebook, what does Jay do? Jay shares it. Most of the time, what most organizations do, they just reach out. I don't know, I get 5 or 6 of these emails a day from people that say, Joe, we recognize you as an influencer in the industry, and we've got a great piece of content we'd like you to share. And I'm going to say, spam button, done. I don't have a relationship with this person. But on the other hand, we've got people that are building a relationship like this with me for a long time. I'm much more open to share it. Why is this important to me? Because when we sent this out, of the 26 influencers in this, 24 shared it with their audience. We had a very small audience at the time, only a couple thousand. We had 50,000 downloads in a very short period of time, not because of our subscribers, but because of the audience we were able to reach through this program. But not good enough, because great, I got downloads. I don't care about downloads. I need subscribers. I need long-term connections. So instead of when they come to our site, instead of them going on through our site and me pitching a product to them, I want them to subscribe. So I have the social proof there on the side. They're going to get an amazing piece of content that they can't live without, and they're going to give us their email address, and that's how we're going to do it. You might have a better way to do it, but that we want another piece of content. We don't want to get them going some kind of a product at this point with this strategy. And then, of course, a lot of you are familiar with pop-ups and popovers. I was totally against doing this at the time. I thought it was a little used car salesman. I was like, I don't want to do it. We tested it out, as Tim talks about all the time. We want to test things. We tested it out, and what we found out is that the people that, first of all, 65% of our subscribers come from this popover form. Second of all, they become some of our best customers. So I absolutely, as we follow them through the buying process. So this is very, very important. So we've grown by using this tactic from 2,000 subscribers to over 130,000 subscribers in a couple-year period. It's worked very well for us. A lot of our clients have used it as well. can't say enough about it. Our third, just a little tidbit before we get to the last essential here. Slideshare. Love Slideshare. You can use Slideshare Pro, formerly called Slideshare Pro feature. You can put your ebooks, on Slideshare. If you're not familiar with Slideshare, owned by LinkedIn, sort of the YouTube for PowerPoint presentations. This is our third best subscription generator, where if you have a big piece of content that people want to download, they can download it and you can ask if they want to subscribe as well to that. So that's the fourth one. This is the fifth one, and I gotta warn you ahead of time, give you a little disclaimer. This is a flyer, but I think that this could be a huge opportunity for you listening to this. We're seeing this trending now. I think it's going to be big stuff here in the next 2 to 4 years. I want you to get in on the ground floor. I feel like I'm selling a stock, Tim. I want you to get on the ground floor of this one right now, because that influencer list I just had you put together, that is going to come into play with this one. I really do think there's a build versus buy scenario here, because you can build this, you can do this, and you will do it, and if you do it right, you will be successful with it, and you will build a long-term asset for your organization. But it does take time. It usually takes well over a year to get this done. I don't know how much patience you have. If you want to accelerate the cycle, you could actually buy. You could target one of those influencers that we're looking at, maybe one of those bloggers that have created amazing subscription database, but they don't know how to monetize it. We're seeing deals that are happening from $10,000 to $10 million. So it depends on, how much. It doesn't depend on the resources. There's opportunities everywhere to go out and purchase these assets. And let me give you an example of some of this. So I'm sure Tim's familiar as a photographer. He's familiar with JPEG Magazine. JPEG Magazine was, they're going out of business in the late 2010s or 2000s, 2008, 2009. Nobody would buy them. No other media company wanted to buy them. They couldn't support themselves on advertising and sponsorship anymore, but they had 300,000 photography enthusiast subscribers. Very valuable. Well, here comes Adorama. What does Adorama do? They sell photography equipment. Those 300,000 photography enthusiasts look pretty darn good to them, plus the built-in JPEG content factory that they have. They went ahead, put a buying group together, bought JPEG Magazine. It's worked out fantastically over the last 5 years. With our friends at HubSpot over there, we see them do the same thing. They had a sales blog, they had a marketing blog, but they wanted an agency blog. They went out and bought agency posts and baked in the agency blog into their overall mix, and now they have 3 blogs as you go to that blogging site. L'Oreal bought Makeup.com a few years ago for $1 million. It's happening more and more. I think that what you're going to see over the next 5 years is the majority of M&A that's going to happen ultimately. I don't know what the timing will be, but it's going to happen. Media companies are small bloggers to large companies are going to start getting purchased by brands, because brands have the money and they don't, for the most part, tell very good stories, and they don't have patience. So we're going to see more and more of this happen. So here's the takeaway slide before we get to Q&A. First of all, set your goals. Why are you doing this? Why are you using each channel? Look at Sales Saving Sunshine. I want you to focus on the reader's outcome. Maybe use that editorial calendar strategy I talked to you about. Create that content marketing mission statement, really important. Focus on subscribers. Use social media, but I want you to focus on subscribers as your key metric. Build that influencer list if you don't have an audience, to build an audience, to steal an audience, as we like to say. And then we want to bake those influencers into our content and create the engine to then get and keep subscribers. And then obviously the folks at Site Tuners can help you with how do you convert those and keep those subscribers as part of your database. And then the flyer would be, consider buying. I really think there's an opportunity right now to look at that as something that most people aren't thinking about right now, but it will be a big, big thing. So I hope you got one thing out of this. I'm glad we got through the technical issues. Really excited to be part of this. I know the one little giveaway that we have, our big event is Content Marketing World, September 8th through 11th. Tim, thanks for the wonderful words on that. You did great, by the way. Of course, you know that. You're a great speaker. We have a $100 savings coupon. I'd love to see you there. Use CMI 100. CMI is all caps, by the way. 100 to get a $100 coupon off. Love to see you there. We'll have over 3,500 marketers from 50 countries this year. Sir John Cleese will be there. Bare Naked Ladies are going to be there. We're going to have a big old party. And by the way, there's 150 other speakers that are going to be there teaching you about the practice of content marketing in every area. you could possibly imagine. So thank you so much for your time, Tim. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and if we have any, I would absolutely love to get to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. Before we move on to Q&A, I want to just say that for those of you that are asking, again, the video of this, along with the slides, will be available. We'll send you a follow-up email, as well as the special offer that Joe just sent for his conference. We've had Joe speak at our conference before the conversion conference. As some of you may know, this is, as I was talking about earlier, an international conference series. We've standardized on one big annual show in the U.S., as well as London and Berlin this fall. So next May, this one sold out, this past one. We had 550 people in Vegas. Next May, we expect to have probably 800 or 900 people in Vegas, 40 tracks, great keynotes, speakers like Joe. So don't miss out. Right now, the full 2 days, 4 parallel tracks, is only $750. It's not going to last long, so just go to conversionconference.com and book it. It's, at this point, fully transferable passes, so you don't even have to decide who has to go. Just go. You probably need a team to cover all the tracks. All right, well, with that, we're going to jump into the questions we have. You have a question pane inside of your GoToMeeting control panel. Please direct your questions there, and I'll field a few of them. But before I do, Joe, I just wanted to amplify and corroborate a couple of things you said. So basically, the bottom line is you have to build earned audience. You have to build the right to communicate with a specific group. I think that's really my biggest takeaway from this.
Absolutely.
And from that, I mean, I want to...
Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just to say that homesteading other people's land is often a really bad idea. I'm just going to give a quick cautionary tale from LinkedIn. As many of you know, LinkedIn not only has personal profiles, but company profiles. And for a while, they had individual services that your company offered. So we put all of our services up there, described them in detail, and we worked really, really hard to have attributed testimonials from actual clients. You can't spoof LinkedIn. It's our actual clients saying, we bought this service from Site Tuners, and it was fantastic. We had 70 testimonials. And then one day, LinkedIn decided we're going to change the way that our corporate section is organized, no longer have individual services with these testimonials hanging off of them, and all of that work we did was flush down the toilet. 70 attributed testimonials disappeared in the blink of an eye. So if you farm other people's lands, that's the risk you run, right, Joe?
Absolutely. Oh, that's first of all, that's a horrible example. But it's,
yeah, it's a true life one.
Well, and it's frustrating because we go into these big companies, and they have these huge budgets, and they're spending money getting these connections, whether they're getting Twitter followers or Instagram followers or whatever. And I'm like, that's fine, but what's the next step? Because we don't know how long you're going to give us access to this, as your LinkedIn example says.
Yep.
So if we can use it for the time being to help grow our audience and our earned audience, as you said, that's great. But you just need to prepare that you might wake up tomorrow and you won't have access to that anymore.
Yeah. So the only reliable things are, get them on your email list, and to a certain case, although it's paid, retargeting. Once they've been to one of your properties, you can stalk them and following them around. So dropping that pixel on them and following them all over the web so you can reach them with a paid targeted message is also really critical. Would you agree with that paid side of things?
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. It's funny because a lot of people will come and say, "Oh, Joe, you're all about creating your own content and organic and not paid." And I said, "No, that's not true at all. Like if you were just getting started out and in some cases ongoing, you should promote your content. You should advertise it. Like what I love about retargeting is retargeting of content. Like there's a huge opportunity to retarget different types of content and follow them around depending on where they are in the buyer's journey, and get them to open a white paper and get them to a subscription offer and those types of things instead of just always doing products and services. I mean, if you don't have an audience, you've got to build an audience some way. You can do that organically, and you can also do that through paid means.
Yeah, and then so let's jump to some questions. Thomas was asking, when creating a content message, how often should you refresh the actual words? I'm going to put it another way. He's talking about attention span, and I'm talking about staying on message. How rigid should you be on the way you express things, and should you kind of keep using the thesaurus to come up with new versions of the same stuff?
Well, I mean, that's, I guess, if you're talking about the tone and the voice of your content, you want to set that up in the beginning as part of your content marketing strategy so you know. Because if you don't have that document and you don't know, we're sarcastic or we're funny or we're authoritative in how we communicate, then your content creators won't necessarily know what they're doing because they don't know what the tone and voice should be. If you're talking about for search and using different terminology, that's a totally different thing because you're always communicating to your customers one way, that's in the way that your story is supposed to be told. For example, we always say content marketing but a lot of people say that phrase. They might call it inbound marketing, even though they're two different things, or maybe they'll say branded content. Well, we use that terminology differently, but we focus that more on the meta tags, and so the computers see that a little bit differently than communicating that to our audience because we have a very particular stance on how we want that story to be told. So the most important thing I would say, Tim, is figure out what your point of view is. You can't just do, like, remember in the days we could just say, oh, you just need to be the Wikipedia for your industry.
So it's more important to have the point of view and the words can be varied, is what I hear you saying. As long as the point of view and the editorial tone are the same, you can have different angles on it and use different ways of describing similar things. Chuck wants to know whether you throw penthouse parties like I did in the presidential suite of the Rio at your event. Can you comment on that quickly?
I know that some of them go on, but unfortunately I can't talk about any of that.
Okay. All right.
I can guarantee you they're nothing like what you're doing.
All right. Well, we've answered that. One question that we had from Andy was the difference between copywriting and content marketing. To me, content marketing is much broader. You're obviously, besides having the intention of all of the things you talked about, there's lots of different channels. Video marketing is content marketing, downloadable assets, things like that. It's not necessarily copy as in the written word, right?
That's right. Copywriting is one function in how we're telling stories. But if you think about, to your point, how are we going to tell the story? And the best media companies of all time have focused on one content type in one particular platform. Your content type might be audio. It could be, we're seeing another boom in podcasting. It could be video. It could be through in-person events. It could be webinars. There's a lot of different ways to tell your story. So copywriting is just one part of the process where you need a really good copywriter. Sometimes you need a journalist. Sometimes you need somebody with a nose for the story. So there's a lot.
Yeah, or a technical writer.
Very, 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 exactly. So it's a very small part. Copywriters are very important, especially in advertising. But you may or may not need a copywriter depending on the story you're trying to tell.
Okay, Adam Levine was asking, and I don't think that's the Maroon 5 guy, but another Adam Levine was asking. No, yeah.
I talked to Adam Levine.
Yeah, I know it's spelled differently. It's Lavine, but he was asking about mobile and how that works with content because you have the tiny screens, you have short attention spans. What's different? Just a couple of quick tips on doing content marketing on mobile.
Well, first of all, we know that I just saw Mary Meeker's Internet Trends report. More and more people are getting on a mobile. We know that's where it's heading. It's less off a desktop experience, more off a mobile experience. I would differ, though, with the idea that our attention spans are getting less and less. And the whole thing, if I see another, your attention span that of less than a goldfish, I'm going to freak out because that's completely not true in my experience, because look at what your consumers, look at the people that you know, what they're engaging with. They're binging on Sons of Anarchy. They're watching House of Cards. They're watching 2-hour movies in droves. The movie business is back.
Yeah, but you can't deny that. I love Game of Thrones. I'm addicted to Mad Men. It's over, unfortunately. But the point is, you can't deny that we touch our cell phones 130 times a day on average. So the point is, it's more interrupt-driven, and that's what I meant by shorter attention spans.
Totally get that. And yeah, you're on Facebook, and you're going back and forth, and our smartphone is 24/7 informational device. What I would say to that is, yes. Do you want to present it in a way that's going to get attention on a mobile device? Sure. But once you get them to the content, if it is good and valuable enough, it doesn't matter. It does not matter the time. Like the whole thing about, YouTube video has to be 2.5 minutes. It depends. Some of the most successful video series I'm seeing are 10 minutes long. Some of them are 20 minutes long. So it really depends on the story you're trying to tell.
We could keep going on. We have some great questions rolling in, but unfortunately we're out of time. So folks, thank you again for joining us. And Joe, thank you for the valuable information, as always, that you shared in a very entertaining manner. Hope to have you back soon.